name is Camila Giron, and we are all here today to talk to you about electronic waste. So our goal for today is to teach you about reusing, recycling, and giving a global solution to a problem that needs to be addressed. So after today, you won't see things the same way ever again. And allow me to introduce my team. Andrés Saca, Sara Valladares, Vera Facuse, Natalie Saca, and Patti Castillo over there. So before we begin, I'd like for all of you to remember a special chant that will be going on throughout today's presentation. Since our theme is electronic recycling and the abbreviation for that is e-cycling, then whenever one of us says E, then you guys have to shout back cycling. So let's give it a try. E.
Cycling!
E.
Cycling!
Perfect, just remember that. Let's begin. Okay, so my friends and I come from the American School of Tegucigalpa, and we started becoming concerned about this problem when we started wondering what was going on with all the electronics we had at home and we're no longer using. And because we all have iPods, computers, and chargers that we weren't using anymore. And then we came across a certain video that I am about to show you. So we came to a conclusion that all these electronics were being sent straight to the dump. And the materials that come in these electronics, many poisonous or toxic, were being sent straight to landfills without proper recycling. Toxic materials and electronics pollute freshwater resources and agricultural lands, transforming them into barren, polluted deserts, which in some future could only serve as parking lots. So now join us watching this video called The Story of Electronics, which by the way is not ours. It was made by storyofstuff.org that will tell you more about this topic.
Crisis. We're trashing our planet, we're trashing each other, and we're not even having fun. The good thing is that when we start to understand the system, we start to see lots of places to step in and turn these problems into solutions. The other day, I couldn't find my computer charger. My computer is my lifeline to my work, my friends, my music. So I looked everywhere, even in that drawer where this lives. I know you have one too, a tangle of old chargers, the sad remains of electronics past. How do they end up with so many of these things? It's not like I'm always after the latest gadget. My old devices broke or became so obsolete I couldn't use them anymore. And not one of these old chargers fits my computer. Ugh! This isn't just bad luck, it's bad design. I call it design for the dump. Design for the dump sounds crazy, right? But when you're trying to sell lots of stuff, it makes perfect sense. It's a key strategy of the companies that make our electronics. In fact, it's a key part of our whole unsustainable materials economy. Design for the dump means making stuff to be thrown away quickly. Today's electronics are hard to upgrade, easy to break, and impractical to repair. My DVD player broke and I took it to a shop to get fixed. The repair guy wanted $50 just to look at it. A new one at Target cost $39. In the 1960s, Gordon Moore, the giant brain and semiconductor pioneer, predicted that electronics designers could double processor speed every 18 months. So far, he's been right. This is called Moore's Law. But somehow, the bosses of these genius designers got it all twisted up. They seem to think that Moore's law means every 18 months we have to throw out our old electronics and buy more. Problem is, the 18 months that we use these things are just a blip in their entire life cycle. And that's where these dump designers aren't just causing a pain in our...
Bless you.
It up. They seem to think that Moore's law means every 18 months we have to throw out our old electronics and buy more. Problem is, the 18 months that we use these things are just a blip in their entire life cycle. And that's where these dump designers aren't just causing a pain in our wallets, they're causing a global toxic emergency. You see, electronics start where most stuff starts, in mines and factories. Many of our gadgets are made from 1,000 different materials, shipped from around the world to assembly plants. There, workers turn them into products using loads of toxic chemicals like PVC, mercury, solvents, and flame retardants. Today, this usually happens in far-off places that are hard to monitor, but it used to happen near my home in Silicon Valley, which, thanks to the electronics industry, is one of the most poisoned communities in the US. IBM's own data revealed that its workers making computer chips had 40% more miscarriages and were significantly more likely to die from blood, brain, and kidney cancer. The same thing is starting to happen all around the world. It turns out the high-tech industry isn't as clean as its image. So, after its toxic trip around the globe, it lands in my hands. I love it for a year or so, and then it starts drifting further from its place of honor on my desk or in my pocket. Maybe it spends a little time in my garage before being tossed out. And that brings us to disposal, which we think of as the end of its life, but really it's just moved on to become part of the mountains of e-waste we make every year. Remember how these devices were packed with toxic chemicals? Well, there's a simple rule of production. Toxics in, toxics out. Computers, cell phones, TVs, all this stuff is just waiting to release all their toxics when we throw them away. Some of them are slowly releasing this stuff even while we're using them. You know those fat old TVs that people are chucking for high-def flat screens? They each have about 5 pounds of lead in them. Lead, as in lead poisoning. So, almost all of this e-waste either goes from my garage to a landfill, or it gets shipped overseas to the garage workshop of some guy in Guiyu, China, whose job it is to recycle it. I've visited a bunch of these so-called recycling operations. Workers without protective gear sit on the ground smashing open electronics to recover the valuable metals inside and chucking or burning the parts that no one will pay them for. So while I'm on to my next gadget, my last gadget is off poisoning families in Guiyu or India or Nigeria. Each year we make 25 million tons of e-waste, which gets dumped, burned, or recycled. And most recycling is anything but green. So are the geniuses who designed these electronics actually evil geniuses? I don't think so, because the problems they're creating are well hidden even from them. You see, the companies they work for keep these human and environmental costs out of sight and off their accounting books. It's all about externalizing the true costs of production. Instead of companies paying to make their facilities safe, the workers pay with their health. Instead of them paying to redesign using fewer toxics, villagers pay by losing their clean drinking water. Externalizing costs allow companies to keep designing for the dump. They get the profits and everyone else pays. When we go along with it, it's like we're looking at this toxic mess and saying to companies, you made it, but we'll deal with it. I've got a better idea. How about you made it, you deal with it? Doesn't that make more sense? Imagine that instead of all this toxic e-waste piling up in our garages or in the streets of Guiyu, we sent it to the garages of the CEOs who made it. You can bet that they'd be on the phone to their designers pretty fast demanding they stop designing for the dump. Making companies deal with their e-waste is called extended producer responsibility, or product take-back. If all these old gadgets were their problem, it would be cheaper for them to just design them longer lasting, less toxic, and more recyclable in the first place. They could even make them modular so that when one part broke, they could just send us a new piece instead of taking back the whole broken mess. Already take-back laws are popping up all over Europe and Asia. In the US, many cities and states are passing similar laws. These laws need to be protected and strengthened. It's time to get these brainiacs on our side. With take-back laws and citizen action to demand greener products, we can start a race to the top where designers compete to make long-lasting, toxic-free products. So let's have a green Moore's Law. How about the use of toxic chemicals will be cut in half every 18 months? The number of workers poisoned will decline at an even faster rate. We need to give these designers a challenge they can rise to and do what they do best, innovate. Already, some of them are realizing they're too smart to be dump designers and are figuring out how to make computers without PVC or toxic flame retardants. Good job, guys. But we can do even more. When we take our e-waste to recyclers, we can make sure they don't export it to developing countries. And when we do need to buy new gadgets, we can choose greener products. But the truth is, we are never going to just shop our way out of this problem because the choices available to us at the store are limited by the choices of designers and policymakers outside of the store. That's why we need to join with others to demand stronger laws on toxic chemicals and on banning e-waste exports. There are billions of people out there who want access to the incredible web of information and entertainment that electronics offer. But it's the access they want, not all the toxic garbage. So let's get our brains working on sending that old design for the dump mentality to the dump where it belongs, and instead building an electronics industry and a global society that's designed to last.
Okay, so as you can see, electronics are in fact designed for the dump. So let's begin with what is e-waste. E-waste refers to electronic scrap. This can be any electronic device from a printer to a cell phone that we throw away. Most people aren't aware of the huge effect this has on the planet, or where all this trash goes to. So for better comprehension of this subject, we need to understand that there are several steps to the process of electronic waste. And the first is to be aware that electronics come to be because there is a need for what they provide. However, there are also some electronics that come to be because we have the ability to make them, but we don't really need them. So, the first thing to know is to stop buying products you don't really need. Why do you need a third control remote or a second can opener? Or do you really need an electric can opener at all? So just remember, don't buy it if you don't really need it. Next comes the manufacturing process. Many of these electronics are made of several heavy metals like gold, tin, copper, silver, lithium, or calcium. And during the mining process used to extract these heavy metals from the earth, many chemical processes are required. You can be sure that a lot of energy is used, a lot of heat is released, and many greenhouse gases are sent into the atmosphere. Our next big problem is planned obsolescence. Many of the products you use are made using cheap processes and poor grade materials. So, in a few years, your device will no longer work, or it won't be compatible with new technologies. Companies are always looking to sell you a newer and better product, so they have more profit, and this way they are benefited even more. So as you can see from the video, they are designed for the dump. And it has even been proven that devices are made with short lifespans on purpose so companies can have even more profit. And guess what? This is a terrible impact because there's more e-waste. So, with all this planned obsolescence, we need to find a solution in the way we dispose of these products, which brings us to our next problem. Our next problem is, what do we do with these devices? Well, our first option must always be reusing, because giving away and reusing an old device is a lot easier than recycling. For reusing requires no process at all. Then, and only then, when reusing is not an option, we must look into recycling. And there are several ways to recycle, and many of them are not environmentally friendly. So we need to be careful in the way we dispose of these items when we choose to recycle, because many of those so-called recyclers aren't really recyclers, but they're just merchants who take electronics and remove the materials that they think are useful, and the rest are just sent to developing countries to a landfill for a fee, which is terrible and gives a horrible impact for these developing countries from the third world. So we must contact responsible companies that will extract most materials like plastics and metals. So now we need to remember, just don't buy it if you don't really need it. And now I will leave you with my friend friend, with my friend Andrei Saka, who will talk to you more about toxics in electronics and the huge impact they have on the planet. Thank you.
Okay, so do you remember our chant? E.
Cycling.
E.
Cycling.
Okay, great. So now we are going to talk about toxics in electronics. Raise your hand if you have had one cell phone. 2, 3, 4. See, where does this all end up? I suppose every time a new computer or cell phone comes out, you throw away the last one and replace it with a new one. What happens to all these electronics thrown out every year? Only 10% of the 20 to 50 metric tons of e-waste are recycled or properly placed. The other 90% is shredded, burned, and dismantled. You might think this isn't so bad, right? They're being incinerated and destroyed. So, what's the big deal? Well, all these electronics contain toxic chemicals in them. About 40% of the metals found in electronics include lead, mercury, flame retardants, and calcium. If these chemicals get into your system, they can cause liver failure, thyroid cancer, irregular heartbeats, system failures, and sometimes even death. Who knew our best friend could kill us? Mercury is extremely dangerous if it enters your system. That's right, our adored cell phones, they contain mercury. Whenever they are burned, shredded, or dismantled, these chemicals are being set free into the air, soil, and water. These electronics are also exported to places like Nigeria and Haiti and other developing countries to be broken down and retrieve the important parts. Most of these parts consist of plastics, circuit boards, chips, and disk drivers. These women, men, and children are breaking apart these electronics without any kind of protection and are exposed to all these chemicals. E-waste is also sent to landfills, and that is no solution either. When the toxics in electronics seep out, they contaminate the air, soil, and water, causing health hazards, contaminating the atmosphere, and they have a very bad impact to us. Batteries are not accurately thrown away either. They contaminate the soil, air, and water as well. Do you remember those huge TVs with the antenna? Those CRT monitors contained pounds of lead, but they were simply thrown out, releasing tons of it. Raise your hand if you own a flat-screen TV. Okay, so nowadays, we own flat-screen TVs, which quickly replace the CRT monitors. They do contain less lead, but have more mercury mass, and that is no improvement. The iPhones and Samsungs we're currently handling have 2 deadly toxics in them, which are benzene and N-hexane. These 2 chemicals are believed to cause nerve damage and cancer. Imagine if these chemicals got into our system. The workers at factories are also being affected by producing these electronics. There have been several cases at Samsung with workers being reported with leukemia. What do you think about that? In most countries, benzene is illegal, but in China, where most electronics are made, it is legal. The company's designed for the dump, making new electronics every 18 months, therefore increasing waste and toxics. Instead of us paying more for their products, we're paying by our contaminated air, soil, and water. They're reinforcing take-back laws in which companies have to deal with their gadgets. Therefore, electronics would be longer lasting, less toxic, and cheaper to repair. We are living in a world when we only care about being actualized and innovative with new technology, but actually we're trashing our world in a way that it is breathtaking. Now, we are going to show you the original video we submitted to Jen just to refresh your memory. By the way, we did create this video and we hope you enjoy it.
Hello and welcome everybody to the 2015 GIN e-waste project. So let's get to it. Why does this matter? Well, around 40 million metric tons of e-waste is produced annually, and only 13% of it is recycled. Here is the other 87%. And as you can see, it is not a pretty sight. So, what happens to all this waste? Well, it is shredded, dismantled, and even burned. When e-waste gets burned, dangerous chemicals are being set free that pollute our air, soil, and water. E-waste is especially harmful to landfills since the metals inside start to leak, which pollute and contaminate the air and soil around us. So, why so much waste? Well, this is mostly due to mass consumerism and mass marketing. People always want the next and best thing. We tend to think that new is always better. Classic supply and demand. Okay, so what about cell phones? There are 6.7 billion people on Earth, and 61% of them have cell phones. And let's be honest, when was the last time you repaired your old phone? You just buy a new one, admit it. So, what should we do to help? Well, don't trash, you should recycle. There are valuable metals and rare minerals inside these electronics, such as gold and copper, which are worth big bucks. That's great. Any other solutions? Well, you can get creative. You can use the components to make anything you want. Hey, the sky's the limit, right? Those are some awesome solutions. So, what is AST doing to help? Well, I'm glad you asked. Through GIN, we are creating e-waste awareness. We want people to know that throwing away their old electronics is actually very harmful to the environment around us. We have set up multiple e-waste drop-offs throughout the school, in which students can literally drop off their old electronics. Electronics that are destined to be properly disposed of or recycled. With your help, we can solve this problem.
Okay, so as you can see, electronic waste is a very big problem. Now I am going to leave you with my friend Patricia, and she will inform you how to properly recycle and dispose of your electronics and about our whole action plan.
With all these toxic chemicals in electronics, we have to learn how to dispose correctly of the devices we buy for our families and businesses. As my team members have addressed, e-waste is a huge issue concerning environmental and human health. One of the things we can do to diminish e-waste is to recycle correctly. But what is the correct way to dispose of e-waste once reusing isn't an option? The best option concerning how to get rid of your old electronics is by contacting an electronic steward. Electronic stewards are people who responsibly reuse and recycle electronics instead of exporting. You can find an electronic steward nearby by accessing e-stewards.org and clicking Find a Recycle. The e-Steward mission statement is, the e-Steward initiative defines and promotes responsible electronic reuse and recycle best practices worldwide. That way, get rid of your old iPhone, iPad, computer, tablet, telephone, printer, fax machine, keyboard, and other not so useful devices you have lying around in your house. But you may wonder, who is going to want all this trash that I no longer need? It is important to dispose correctly of these items because of the dangerous toxics in them. We should recycle in the right places, because sometimes when people say that they are going to recycle your electronics, many times they are handled by local workers who search for the useful metals and minerals. But the rest of the device becomes part of the usual trash we're trying to avoid since the very beginning. Moving on to our educated solution. Some companies that sell electronics have a take-back program, and they will recycle your device for free. Stores like Staples and Best Buy do free recycling. So all you need to do is take in your old electronic to be recycled. In Honduras, we don't have all these stores that will take back our items. So we have contacted a local responsible company called Jet Stereo that has helped us as any other store could help your team. Our drop-off center was organized. We created inventories that were later delivered to the main store by school maintenance personnel. Concerning the drop-off center, there are many tasks we needed to accomplish. The first one was to educate the students and faculty about the problem. We handled this by hosting class discussions and hanging around posters in the school to create awareness about the problem and the search for its solution. After learning all the negative effects of e-cycling, you must remember not to get the next version of another device simply because it is newer. And if the old one still works fine, try getting greener versions of the devices you need, because factories that made them probably recycle materials as well. Just like we created a drop-off center at AST, we encourage you to build an e-cycling community at your own school. So now, my friend Sarah is going to talk to you about the hazardous effects of e-waste in the human body.
So, how do electronics affect our health? The use of electrical and electronic equipment in humans is excessive. Even though they are very useful, they can also be very harmful. Electronic devices are made up of a large quantity of components and materials, some containing dangerous toxins that can impact human health and the environment. Generally, these risks result from the improper recycling and disposal processes used. But what damages can electronic devices do? 1. Sleep problems. During the day and bedtime, this can be associated with an increased risk of taking longer than 60 minutes to fall asleep. 2. Cancer. 3. Musculoskeletal symptoms. In different parts of the body in relation to the obsessive use of electronic devices, particularly of playing games. 4. Affect your body. Exposure to the light of electronic devices, especially blue light, can affect your body. They may also cause nosebleeds, seizures, high blood pressure, irregular heartbeats, development problems, and even death.
So these are posters we made so you remember about the effects.
So, electronics can also affect your brain. The excessive use of internet can lead to depression. Too much GPS usage can lead to brain atrophy. Social websites are harming children's brains. Education activities may actually slow learning, and children are losing the ability to concentrate and think. Electronics have toxins that harm our bodies, so take a look at the board. These are some of the toxins that are harming our bodies. The substances listed above can be found in small amounts in any electronic device. And although a single electronic device will not do much harm to an individual, it can be when exposed to many at once. So here are some facts you might not know about electronic waste and what it does to us. 80 to 85% of e-waste is deposited in landfills and incinerators, and toxins go into the air we breathe. In America, e-waste is 2% of all trash in landfills. However, it makes 70% of all toxic waste. E-waste is still the fastest growing waste in water streams. And now I'm going to leave you with my friend Nathalie Saka, and she will talk to you about how we can help solve this problem.
Cycling.
The electronic waste crisis is happening right here now. It is occurring in the palm of our hands. It is a gadget that we hold each and every day next to our ears to talk to someone miles away, or just as far as the room next to us. It is how we exercise our thumbs to keep in touch with people. It is the swiping of left to right, or the scrolling from top to bottom. It is the taking of pictures, the uploading of photos, the hearing of music, the sending a tweet, the Instagramming our food. It is what today keeps us thriving for new information. Without it, we wouldn't be alive, the cell phone. I called it a crisis, not because it's having an emotional breakdown, or because it's screaming at its mother that it wants to die of her pain, but because it actually is. The electronic crisis is also known as electronic waste. It is a term used for electronic products that have become unwanted, non-working, or obsolete, and have essentially reached the end of their useful life. When you look at a computer or a cell phone, it does not seem to be dangerous. Why, it's the last thing you would think. Typically, only the outer casing is what we look at for hours upon hours, but it's what's inside that possesses a real threat to the environment, humans, and animals. Electronic products are stuffed with heavy metals and various chemical products that can leak into soil and become hazardous. Things like lead, mercury, copper, barium, and nickel are all existing within a variety of electronic products. As they're being thrown away or placed in landfills, the products often break and expose their inner workings, releasing those dangerous chemicals and toxins. We were aware of the dangers that these harmful toxins were doing to our state of health, so we decided to take action. We handled the problem of what to do with the old devices, so we set up bins around the school to handle the materials and gadgets. We were pleasantly surprised to find that a lot of the gadgets that were great for some were needed by others, giving a new life to the old device. Maintenance workers and cleaning ladies from our school were happy to take many of the gadgets that were collected. They were willing to repair them, and we were willing to help. New users for old devices meant that no manufacturing or recycling process was needed, so there was no energy, no waste, no gases, and no fumes. The devices that were left over after the reusing process were classified and sent to a recycling company, one that is specialized in recycling electronic devices. This company was in charge of disassembling the devices and recycling its materials according to the type. Plastics, metals, and other objects that cannot be recycled were responsibly handled in such a way that the impact of its disposal was minimal. If you're interested in helping out, standing out, and most importantly, making a difference, it will not be like an every man for themselves kind of thing. We all have to work together as a team. The first thing you should do to stay aware of the problem and help with electronic waste is to make sure you know where the devices are being disposed. Just because companies collect your e-waste doesn't mean they'll recycle it too. Try to repair those old devices. Extending the life of your electronics is one of the best steps you can take to help the environment. Repairing your items prevents waste from entering landfills and lowers demands for new electronics. Don't trash them. We should never throw e-waste in the trash, not even the small stuff like phones or batteries that we think are not doing any harm, or in fact releasing dangerous toxins in the air. Try to minimize your e-waste. One way to do this is by reusing the precious metal and plastics in an old cell phone instead of mining more of them. That simple action would save as much energy as flipping off the power of 24,000 US homes for an entire year. Follow these easy steps and you will for sure be plugging yourself green. Reevaluate. Do you really need that extra gadget? Extend the life of your electronics. Buy a case, keep your device clean, and avoid overcharging the battery. Buy environmentally friendly products. Look for products labeled Energy Star or certified by the Electronic Product Environmental Assessment Tool. Donate used electronics to social programs. Reuse large electronics and recycle electronics and batteries in an e-waste recycling bins located near you. This is by far the most important step. As an extension to our project, we decided to carry out an investigation in our middle school that would guide us into determining which would be the best method to make teenagers aware of this environmental problem. But let me say no more. My partner Vera will further explain the concept of this experiment.
From using signs and syllables to using the latest versions of technology. These things are what helps us communicate now, not signs or other ancient ways people used way before we were even born, but these, also known as the environment's enemies. Wait a second, enemy? My cell phone isn't my enemy at all. In fact, it's my friend. Well, it might be your friend, but it's certainly not the environment's friend. And like a good person, you want all of your friends to get along. So, what can you do? Let's see if you remember. E?
Cycling.
E?
Cycling.
But if we really want to get to the root of it all, we have to start by, what is a cell phone? To you, what is a cell phone?
A place that we can get connected to social media.
What is a cell phone?
A device to help you communicate.
Exactly. Computer Hope Corporation states that a cell phone, sometimes abbreviated as a CP, is a mobile or portable phone that enables a user to communicate with someone almost all around the world. Think about it, almost all around the world. No wonder we're so close to them. A teenager is estimated to send out or receive 2,108 text messages per month, which is equal to 4 copies of the first book of the Twilight series. You also add an average of 6.5 contacts to your cell phone per month, which by the time you graduate would equal to 400 or more contacts. I don't know about your cell phone, but my cell phone gets really stuck sometimes, and that leads to, which is not the best way to fight with your electronic waste, it is an easy yet rough one. When you have your device repaired, you either pay to have it fixed, or you simply buy a new one. Either way, you end up with obsolete parts that simply disappear to us, but really, they end up in the weirdest places. And by weirdest places, I mean when they could have been recycled and gotten out of their misery. Think of this as a way to pay tribute to your electronic friend, or because you simply owed it to them. Because we felt so motivated with this topic, we decided to conduct a field experiment. to see which methods of educating teenagers would be the most effective method. Our action plan involved trying a new method daily. At the end of the week, we gathered the data, analyzed it, and saw which was the most effective teaching method. Our methods of testing were showing videos, including the one we just saw, interacting through games, handing out flyers, different litter Dropbox, and our Instagram page, which is eval cycling if you want to check that out. Sending out emails, and giving out treats. As we carried out our experiment, more and more people started getting involved in our topic, until the point where they joined the Plug Yourself Green team and started bringing old or broken electronics to our drop-off. Concluding our science project, we proved that our hypothesis was accepted, and we proved that the most effective methods on teens was implementing our reward system. So we decided to reward you. This environmental topic stays engraved in your mind forever. We are the e-cycling team, and by us giving you these stickers, you are a part of our team too.
So we have several different designs to our stickers. First we have this one, which we call our e-cycling logo. Then we also have another design, which we have on the board also, that says recycle your electronics, that transmits the message of our purpose. And then we also have a special quote that says, from Lorex, that says, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So now we're going to pass out the stickers so you can get even more involved.
4 minutes, ladies. 4 minutes left. Sticker streets, all of it at once, okay?
Okay. And also we have another special surprise, like my companion Bella said, that we want to reward you and spread all of this awareness in several ways. So now we're going to be talking shortly about several sweets we're bringing from Honduras.
So, as we said at the beginning, we are from Honduras, and Honduras is located in Central America. In Honduras, we have rich culture, we have dance, arts, and music, and so we have decided to bring a little bit of Honduras to Mexico. Here, we have brought some Honduran treats, in which we call dulce de leches, and they are dulces típicos, and we also have all these magnificent treats, like small jewelry boxes, paintings, and small pouches that says Honduras.
They all represent the Honduran culture, and if you ever travel there, you will find out that simpleness will never be a problem. And we really hope you like these special treats. And while I'm going to do that time.
3 minutes left.
Okay, so we're going to be passing out. As Annette passes out her treat, I'm going to say it. As one thing leads to another, materialism and consumerism will always be linked to a reward system. As George Boyd states, materialism is the system that eats us from the inside out. This means we are putting an object as our top priority, or it occupies the biggest space in our hearts, which is completely incorrect and should be replaced by moral and religious values. Has the world lost the concept of setting priorities straight? Materialism links to consumerism, which is the belief that spending a lot of money on an object is our idea of a good thing. Many people think of this as a phase we teens are having right now. Like right now, teens love sugar, from cake pops to cookies to cupcakes. Absolutely anything that has to do with food, especially free food. And it's not just teens. Everybody loves free food. A reward system is a common method used to manipulate kids into doing things or to interest them in something. Like when your mom tells you to do something. You obviously want something as a payment or in return. But the way we used the method was by going into classrooms, asking questions about electronic waste, and having teens answer them. As we gave a reward, the kids that answered the questions correctly got a cupcake full of frosting that looked like absolutely heaven to the teenage eye. Immediately, everybody started participating, and the classrooms were a mess of teens hollering facts from e-waste here and there, showing a lot of interest in the topic. So remember, like the rest of the ASC Gym team said, electronics are designed for the dumb, with the objective of a higher profit. More and more trash is accumulated. Therefore, there is harm for our home, planet Earth. Do we really want to risk our beautiful motherland for the sake of our own survival, or our health conditions, for a simple trick to the tech store to get our device repaired? What we need is a change. We can make that change. Let's heal the world.